Hi there, and welcome to the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. Today in the kitchen, I'm going to show you how to make a favorite of mine that I make all the time, and it is Breakie beans. So it's made with black beans. I have this for breakfast 4 mornings a week, and typically what I do is I make a big batch of them, and I do it like once a month. So usually the batch lasts me about for 5 weeks, so it's slightly more than a month. And I make this up and I have it 4 mornings a week on rice. And then with a little side of my corn-free cornbread. And there's the recipe for that. I will try to link it up at the top and put that corn-free cornbread recipe at the top. And it's going to be down below too in the comments. But we're going to show you how to make the Breakie beans. It's also great if you want to have it as a quick dinner. So if you make a big batch of this and you have some set aside in your deep freezer or your fridge freezer, and then you can make a quick meal. So they're really great to have, very versatile. It's vegetarian, it's gluten-free and dairy-free and vegetarian if you want to do that, or you just want to have a vegetarian meal once a week or something like that. So this is a great and very versatile thing. I like to have it for breakfast. You might want to have it for lunch or dinner, but it's wonderful. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop up some vegetables to go in with our Breakie beans. Typically that's some onion I've already chopped up. That's about a 1.5 onions. They're sort of small to medium, so I did 1.5. If you got a really large onion, that would work too, just one large onion. And I'm going to put some sweet pepper in that. You could use green pepper, but I'm using sweet pepper, so I got 3 because these are kind of small, so I'm going to chop those up. You could also do celery. I don't have celery in my house right now. You could have a little bit of chopped up zucchini if you wanted, anything like that. If you want them a little bit spicier, you could chop up some jalapeno as well. I typically do not have it very spicy because I usually have this for breakfast. So I'm going to chop these up. Okay, so I'm just about finished cutting up the sweet pepper. I did some of this off camera because do you need to see me cutting up the entire sweet pepper or all 3 of these little sweet peppers? I don't think you do, right? So, a little bit boring. Okay, so here we go. Got the rest of them cut up. I'm going to just stick them in this bowl and we're going to get started putting it all together. Okay, so I'm going to do this in a large electric frying pan. You could also do this recipe in a large skillet. So let's say you have a really large skillet that I'm going to show you. Go back to this. Like if you have a great big skillet like this, you could use that. I'm going to use my electric. Like I say, I'm going to use my electric today because this worked really well. Because this will get really saucy, really soupy almost to begin with. So I'm just heating that up. So it's starting to heat up. I'm going to add some olive oil. So we're going to do that. We get a good amount in there. A couple tablespoons of it anyway. We get our handy dandy spoon. And if you're using a non-stick pan like this, like I'll just like to swirl that around in there. If you're using a non-stick pan, do not use metal utensils. Okay, so I got this. It's kind of a hard plastic kind of thing. I don't know, resin or whatever they're making that out of, but it is not. You could use a wood, but not anything metal on that. So we're going to do that. Okay, so now we're going to add the onions to the pan. And if you wanted to chop up some garlic, you could add garlic to this as well. It's very versatile, this. I mean, you could do it any way you like. Like I say, if you wanted to add jalapeno, you could have jalapeno in this as well. So while that's starting, so we got the onion going. What else are we going to need? Okay, so we had that onion started. Again, we're going to need that. We're going to throw that in my sweet peppers in a minute. If you had celery or chopped up zucchini, you could do that. Sorry, I'm just trying to break this up a little bit. Okay, so these chopped up onions, just wanted to kind of break them up. They're kind of stuck together. Okay, so the other things that we're going to need are beans, okay? Black beans. Okay, so it could be any kind of beans you like. Black beans. These are ones that were dried beans that I soaked on Friday night. Probably 12 hours, but they could be up to 8 to 12 hours of soaking, and then rinsed, and then cooked. So I cooked them on Saturday morning. Now it's Sunday morning, like really, really stinking early. But anyway, and so now I'm going to make it. Now, instead of dried beans, you could use canned beans. Okay, so canned black beans. I would suggest 2 large cans of black beans for this recipe. So if you're going to do that, and if you want to learn how to use a dried bean, I have a video that I'm going to link to up top. I'm going to try to link up top, and definitely down below, a video about how to prepare beans so that you can use them afterwards. Okay, so almost like making your own canned beans, but you know, basically instead of buying the can, you could do that. And it's cheaper actually to buy the dried beans rather than to do the canned beans, but it's a little less, let's say, I'm going to turn that down a little bit. It's a little less, how do you put, convenient. It's a lot more steps. I don't mind taking lots of steps in my kitchen, but some people don't really like to do that. You want to make it easier for yourself, then you go ahead. So then we're going to put in we just put in the sweet peppers, and this would be a good time to put celery in there, zucchini in there, whatever. We're going to let that brown a little bit more. Let that get started. Okay. So that's pretty colorful, right? These like sweet orange peppers. The sweet peppers. Like I say, if you want to put jalapeno, you want to give it some spiciness, and go ahead. Whatever kind of peppers you like. You want green pepper, you could do that. Like all kinds of things. Another thing you could add into this, especially if you're going to do it for a dinner, you could add some cut green beans or some corn. Like, so some either a can of corn niblets or some frozen corn niblets. You could do that. I don't eat corn, but if you do, if you can, then you like corn, then that would be a good thing to add to it as well. Very, very versatile. Very versatile. A lot of the time I add zucchini to this, because I love chopped zucchini, but I've been having a difficulty trying to find it at the store right now. So I'm in April now, end of April 2025, and it's been a little difficult to find zucchinis. I'm actually thinking I'm going to have to grow my own this year, for sure. I did it before. They just take a lot of room to grow, because the plants get to be like, it looks like something that's going to take over the world. They're like really big plants. But I love zucchini. So I may just have to. Okay, so there we go. So that's getting browned very nicely now. So I'm going to take my beans. So that's made, when I soaked out the beans, I started with a cup and a half of dried beans, and it turned into about 4 cups of cooked beans. Okay, so it's about 4 cups of cooked beans. So that's probably, like I say, 2 large cans of beans that you're going to want to, if you're using canned beans, make sure that you drain them and rinse them first before you do this. So yeah, there we go. Put the beans in. Okay, and the next thing you're going to need is a large can of crushed tomatoes. Ow! I just touched the side of that. Now it's not good with my hand. With my okay, trying to get my fingers out of the way. So crushed beans, or tomatoes, and I got the ones with the fine herbs. Doesn't really matter what kind you use. Ooh, gotta turn that down a little bit. All kinds of noisy right now. Okay. You can see this makes a lot, right? Or like you want to feed an army. You've got an army to feed, you know. Or you could do this as a side dish as well. I mean, you know, you got a barbecue and you got ribs, going to have ribs or something, your barbecue and all kinds of stuff. And you didn't want to do like, maybe you want to do something that's like a side dish that's a hot side dish. You could do beans. right? So brekkie beans, what I call my brekkie beans. But anyway, next thing I'm going to do is put some broth. And I'm using some vegetable broth. Today you could use beef broth if you wanted, chicken broth, whatever you like. I just pour in here. So I can't even tell you how much to put in, because what I like to do, I want this to get pretty good and soupy. So I want this a little bit more than that, to be honest. Probably about half of this. So this is a 900 milliliter thing, so not quite 4 cups worth. So a couple cups worth, a cup and a half to 2 cups of this probably is what you're going to want to use in there. So this recipe is more like doing it on the fly, right? Like you're not like, oh, we need a certain amount, we need a specific this amount of this or a specific little amount of that. It's just whatever, right? Like you do you, right, with that. I'm going to put a little tiny bit more, and then I'm going to turn it up. Turn up the heat again. So I want this to really get going. I am making this morning on a Sunday morning, and it is now 10 to 5 in the morning. And I have been up since 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning. So cooking in my kitchen, and I made another recipe. I made the roasted eggplant for the first time recipe. I did that this morning as well. The reason why I do this at the crazy time of the day is so that I can get the kitchen to myself, and I can be down in my kitchen cooking with nobody else around. So I have my daughter around and my husband around, and the dog coming in and out and everything like that. So, all around, and everybody wants something from me because I'm mom, right? So this is when I can have the kitchen to myself. Everybody else is asleep, including the dog. So it's just me. So, but that's, I like having the kitchen to myself and doing this in the kitchen. Love being in my kitchen. So next thing I'm going to do is add some seasoning. So I'm going to add some pepper to that. So it's kind of getting a simmer going there, kind of bubbling a little bit, starting to bubble. I'm going to add some salt. So some sea salt here, Himalayan sea salt. I'm just going to pour a little bit in my hand, round about like a teaspoon. You know what? This is a big amount of stuff. I'm just going to stir it in there a little bit. And yeah, you just do you with this, right? So whatever you want to put in here, that's kind of the nature of it. Another thing I like to use is some summer savory. So I am going to, again, pour it in my hand first. So I kind of eyeball it. So I put quite a bit. Dump that in. I have small hands, but still, that's still quite a bit. Okay. I run my running patter while I do this. So me talking to you. Yeah. So, but no, I like to be in the kitchen by myself. I don't like people being in here with me. And it isn't really about people like being in the kitchen, but they've got the TV on, which is adjacent to, like, it's just beyond my camera. Okay. Like on the other side where the camera is, behind the camera is where my living room is. People have the TV on, or playing a video game or doing something, and it's like very hard for me to get the area to myself without people coming and going or doing their own thing, which is fine that they're doing their thing. But yeah, I'm going to add one more thing to this. I'm going to go over to my cupboard over here. Let me see. Well, maybe 2 more things. So I'm going to add a little bit of dash to that. If you wanted to add some curry powder, if you wanted to add a little bit of chili flakes, if you wanted to add, like, that'll give it a little bit of heat too. If you wanted to add a little bit of, let's see, what else could you add? Some garlic in there, like you could have chopped up some garlic or like some garlic powder in there. Typically I don't, because I use this for breakfast. For myself, I don't want a lot of really garlicky first thing in the morning, and I don't want a lot of heat. Like, I get my heat by adding pepper to my food. And one thing I like to do when I'm serving this to myself in the morning, you know, a serving of it, is to add a little bit of this, which is the original blend dash. And, you know, I can put some in here right now too, but it's a little bit coarser, and it's got a really good peppery flavor, and like an oniony, but more peppery flavor. And I like that when I'm serving it out to myself. So, but you do you as far as what spices and herbs you want to put in there, and experiment with it. Like one time you do it, you might go, look, I'm, you know, going to have it with this. And I'm like, you know, I like to have it stronger, or I like to have it zippier, or I like to have it this way or that way. You do it your way. Because I do this for breakfast, I have it quite for myself, and I prefer to have things a bit milder for myself. Then I do that. One quick way to add some heat, let's say if you wanted heat or some spiciness to this, is to add a jar of like salsa or something to it. So that's something else you could do, right? So, you know, just like, hey, that adds the zip really quickly without all this chopping and stuff too. So if you wanted to make something like this, you've got a couple cans, large cans of beans, you got one large can of tomatoes, you know, chopped up tomatoes, some broth, right? And just like a can of jalapeno, or oh yeah, a can of jalapenos if you want, or a can of salsa, or a jar of salsa, and maybe a can of corn niblets if you can eat corn, or, you know, you do you with this. But this is what I typically have for my breakfast every morning. We're going to let that simmer. There you have it, a big pot or pan of brekkie beans, or if you want to make them for dinner, lunch, what have you, there they are. So let me just adjust my camera so you can see me and you can see the brekkie beans. And thanks for watching today. Thanks for visiting me at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now. I know I said that I was done, but I just wanted to show you one more thing about with the brekkie beans. Now, this makes a lot, and I'm the only one in my house that eats this. So there's no way I can eat this even in 1 week, right? So what I do is I store some in my freezer in portion sizes, so enough for 1 week's worth, so for 4 days each. So I put them in old, like, yogurt containers. This is coconut milk yogurt, and I put it in that, and I individual size, so I measure off like a third of a cup into a little measuring cup, a third cup. I actually have ones that have a third cup, and so that's 1, 2, 3, and about 4. There we go. So that's enough for me for 4 days. And so that would put it in the freezer. And what I do is I make a little sticker with says brekkie beans and the date, and put the cover on it, and put them all in the freezer like that with my little note to myself of what's in it. And that's what I do. And yeah, so I usually, typically that would make enough for at least 4 weeks and possibly 5 weeks. And then I reheat these, like I take a portion size, like a third of a cup, put it in a saucepan, put a little bit of broth, and reheat it a little bit. I find it's better to reheat it on the stove than in the microwave, because in the microwave, if I reheat it there, they get sort of mealy and dry, the beans. But if I reheat on the stove, works out beautifully. And I have it with a bit of rice, and like I said before, my corn-free cornbread. So again, thanks for watching. See you next time.